Hey everyone, darshanmaharaja here. Last little while we heard about three different instances of clashes between two groups from Eritrea. And of course, this brings up the long-standing issue of importing foreign conflicts or foreign disputes in Canada. Before I get into that, it is worth noting that we are looking at another instance of the definition of insanity, where such clashes erupted in other cities also, and yet the same events were allowed to be held in other cities. So maybe, some thought could have gone into that. Now people have a right to peaceful gathering, but when that gathering has a track record or is acquiring a track record of not being peaceful, then I think we can modify our stance a little bit instead of continuing as if nothing has happened. So we are at that level of definition of insanity. But I want to explore the idea here. When I heard about the clashes erupting for the third time, I think it was in the city of Edmonton. A thought occurred to me that maybe this is the inevitable result of the warped concept of multiculturalism that we have here in Canada. And I'll tell you why I think it is a warped concept. Because in my definition, multiculturalism is something that enables a person to occupy more than one cultural space. Now, it's difficult, getting enmeshed in a very different culture, especially if you are doing it an advanced age or after growing up, basically. As a child, it's easy to acquire other cultures, practices, and be familiar with them and be intimate with them. But as an adult, it is much more difficult. So, what happens is that our multiculturalism, the practice of multiculturalism, is limited to things that don't require much effort. For example, food. So, it's easy to sit down somewhere and eat garlic naan with paneer bhurji, followed by biryani, either vegetarian or chicken or whatever your choice is. And you pat yourself on the back and say that, yeah, we are multicultural. No, we are not. Because making those dishes is vastly more difficult than eating them. So, or even less effort is required in watching a cultural performance of a culture which is not, originally Canadian. So that is even less requiring of effort watching someone perform the bhangra or garba, the Gujarati folk dance. And mention of that folk dance brings me to an important part here, which is also missing from our idea of multiculturalism, which is that as far as the Indian subcontinent goes, culture is at four different levels. What we celebrate here mostly is either the uh, folk culture or the pop culture of Bollywood or whatever the entertainment platform is. So, we limit ourselves to these, but there are two other levels. At the most difficult level, there is the classical, and there are equivalents to that in the Western civilization also. For example, opera or performance of Hamlet. That is classical. And then there is a crossover stratum where classical is mixed with more easily digestible elements. In Indian languages, it's called sugam, which means easy to access or easy to reach. So there are elements of classical there, but then it's not so elitist or it doesn't require extensive training or exposure. So you don't see those, although they do occur, once in a while. I have attended two performances by the great Indian classical vocalist Pandit Jasraj, and there was a crowd there, but there was no politician there because it's not a place where they can uh, get a lot of brownie points, pun intended. So that is about culture. But then what happens is because even at the pop level or folk level, it requires a lot of effort and time and other resources to actually participate in a different culture. Um, what ends up happening is that the easiest part of being in another culture and claiming to be multicultural is in politics. So instead of multiculturalism, we have multipoliticalism, where the same person occupies more than one political space instead of cultural space. So, and this is very easy because those are foreign conflicts involving two disputing parties, and then you can fall back on concepts that you are very well familiar with, like human rights or freedom of expression, right to peaceful protest. All those things can be blended in, and typically you are rewarded for it. The communities themselves are rewarded by political recognition, and the politicians are rewarded by gaining popularity. And this is not necessarily limited to foreign issues only. Even in domestic issues, for example, when Quebec passed their Bill 21, the city of Brampton and the city of Toronto, the municipal politicians declared that they would be pitching in funds for the legal fight against Bill 21 in Quebec. And my immediate question was, does the city have the legal authority to use taxpayer money for fighting legal battles that are internal to another province of Canada? And you can extend it to foreign issues also, but in this case, we are talking about Bill 21 in Quebec. So recently, there was a court judgment in the case of the city of Toronto where the court said, no, you can't do this. Now, unfortunately, there is no similar case for Brampton's pledge of $100,000 to fight Bill 21. It's a popular cause, but it has nothing to do with the running of the city. But this is yet another and local instance of multipoliticalism. And ultimately, it will lead to, via encouragement of such activities, it will lead to heightened tensions because there will be disputing parties, two or more, and it benefits politicians a lot because it keeps the people divided. Uh, Technically, there is a South Asian community in Canada, but let me tell you, there is no community. There are people who are identified as South Asians individually, but there is no community. Because if they are from India, they will be either pro Modi or anti Modi, or uh, between Hindus and Sikhs, there will be a dispute about Khalistan, or even among Sikhs themselves, there will be a dispute about Khalistan. Some will be pro and some will be anti, and their cause will get a lot of play in the political sphere of Canada. So, political outcomes in Canada, whether in terms of election results or in terms of policies that get enacted by any government, they are influenced by things that have nothing to do with Canadian politics or concerns of Canadians as Canadians. They may have their concerns as a member of an identity group coming from overseas, but that is where we have multipoliticalism, where a lot of people, including politicians, occupy more than one political space. And especially in the case of politicians, this is all the more worrisome because they are not supposed to occupy more than one political space. Their focus has to be uh, consistently on what benefits Canadians as Canadians. So when I heard about these three incidents of clashes between two different groups from Eritrea, I thought maybe I should air my views and get your feedback as well. Let me know what you think about this. But I think I'm on the right track here, but I'm always open to having dissenting views and considering them, and if necessary, revise my opinion. So let me know in the comments, and I'll see you the next time. Until then, goodbye and be well.